Welcome back, audiences. I know you missed us. We took a long little sojourn off there, but we are back, and we are here to record the Week 7 pregame podcast. I, your host, am joined by Spotty, as always, and by Jared, my two co-hosts. Guys, what's up? How we doing tonight?
Doing good. Ready for a short week Thursday night game.
Good.
I like Thursday. I want to like Thursday night games more, but I just feel like a lot of the Thursday night games they put in front of us haven't been fantastic, and I'm not exactly saying that this one will be either.
Fair enough. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us on the Orange Weekly pregame podcast, Week 7, Denver Broncos versus the New Orleans Saints. Broncos, as Spotty said, traveling to New Orleans on a Thursday night. And so, guys, as we dive into this game a little bit, last week, obviously, the first time that we didn't get a win by going Broncos offense first, but data is still in our favor, so we're going to try that again. And, guys, you know, they covered this a lot on the post-game podcast, and we also covered it on the Bourbon Broncos and No BS show just now. But, guys, the offense is still just a work in inconsistency right now, right? And I think, unfortunately, for everybody who's listening and watching right now, the cure for that inconsistency is not, okay, go on the road and play on Thursday night immediately after losing, right? So, yeah, what are your guys' initial thoughts about this offense versus the New Orleans Saints defense?
Yeah, I think you hit that nail on the head. I think the word for the Denver Broncos this year is inconsistent. And having a short week is not going to be the change that we want to see. I mentioned it a little bit earlier too, but I think the biggest thing I want to see in a short week is how the coaching staff can adjust to a game on a short week, game plan for a short week, and make sure there's adjustments in game. That's kind of what you see in Thursday night games. You have to be able to adjust in game to what you see because you don't get a lot of time to prepare for it beforehand.
But, you know, one of the things about it is I think it's easier to scheme for a run game than it is for a passing game, right? So it's easier to say, hey, we should try to run through these gaps. You know, you have this man go after it, opposed to these routes work better. Or if you see this man and, you know, too high safety shell, run this. It's a lot easier for the Broncos to come into this week and say, let's get back to the ground and pound. Let's get back to, you know, peewee football. Just run the football up the middle until we can't do it anymore. I would just run a gap until you can't run it anymore and run towards the sides that we know are, you know, more efficient for us. So it shouldn't be that hard. And I think the Broncos need to show that they can have the ability to run in this football game, because if they don't show it now, I'm not really sure they're going to really have a chance any other time. Maybe, I mean, I get it next game after that, but they're not going to have another chance after this. We're going to run into some really tough run defenses.
Yeah, and what's the best way to set up a rookie quarterback is establish a run game, and we just haven't been able to do that yet, and I think that's the key to this.
One of the times that Bo Nix has looked best this season is when the run game is operating at a high level. So, yeah, there's a theme that's going to go throughout this podcast, and it's run the football for the Broncos offense. And so, guys, as we zoom in a little bit more on that, obviously you've got Alex Palczewski limited in practice today after not practicing at all last week with the injury that he sustained against the Las Vegas Raiders. Mike McGlinchey also starting his clock to come back from the injured reserve by practicing again, although we will not see Mike McGlinchey this week at right tackle. But there is a little bit more hope on Alex Palczewski. You've definitely still got Alex Forsyth starting at center, though, so you're down one day one starter on that offensive line going into this game. And you know, another thing we talked about on the Bourbon Broncos and No BS show, guys, is the running backs keep fumbling. And everybody's got one, it seems like, to their name this year. And so who do you think you guys, Jared, I think I know the answer for you. You made a pretty strong position known a few minutes ago. But Spotty, I'll turn this to you first. Who is the guy that you're looking for to provide a little bit of spark in that running back room right now?
Quite honestly, I feel like we're not utilizing Jaleel McLaughlin like we should. We were talking about Big G all the time last year, and here we are. We've barely talked about it at all. During the preseason, we saw a lot of those kind of crackback outside run plays, almost like we were going to do it during the year. And I don't really remember us running that at all during this. So it was like almost something that we showed in the preseason that we were just trying to show that we had the ability to do it, but not doing it whatsoever. So I'm not really sure how that's going to work. But Jaleel McLaughlin is somebody that we know can come out of the backfield, catch some balls, and he's a home run hitter. If he gets into some open space, he has the ability to take the top off of a defense. We're trying to run him up between the tackles. That's not his game. It's kind of like what we used to do with Philip Lindsay all the time. Philip Lindsay, when he was running outside of the tackles, was doing the best because he was the diminutive running back. And that's what you kind of have to do with your speed guys. Where the Chargers showed the Broncos how to get outside. And I think we should definitely try to steal a little bit of that to get McLaughlin outside of the tackles.
Yeah, I agree. You make a good point about the preseason and the fact that we haven't done a lot of like offensive line cracks. Like we haven't done any pulls. We haven't seen a lot of that. It's like kind of our man against your man. Let's see what happens. And it hasn't been working out super well for us. And I think we need to get a little bit creative. This is not the time to do it on a short week. And I just don't think we're going to see it this week specifically. However, I made a strong point, and I think Javonte Williams is still our 3-down back. And I do believe in him. I think that obviously he had a big fumble on a drive that we needed to be able to be relevant in that game last week. And he just kind of let go of the ball. But I do have a lot of faith in Javonte Williams to be able to be that guy, especially in between the tackles. Obviously the outside tackles. What we don't want to get into is we only have Javonte in for the inside the tackles and McLaughlin in for the outside tackles, because now all of a sudden know we're running, right? And I don't want to do that. However, I do believe Javonte Williams is our 3-down back. I think he can do both those things. And he still has the ability to break tackles if he needs to. I just believe in Javonte for this game, specifically against the Saints.
I mean, I don't know that they'll have. I mean, that's another thing. When we talk about a short week, there's not a ton of time to change things up drastically, right? So, yeah, I think for that reason, if no other, Javonte will probably get a lot of run. But Spotty, I wouldn't be surprised to see Jaleel get a few more tosses and things like that thrown his way as well, just to see what we get there. Guys, let's pivot a little bit to these offensive weapons, particularly at wide receiver. I think we are seeing just a little bit of spark with young guys. I think you're seeing Troy Franklin kind of put things together maybe a little bit out there. I think you're seeing Devon Vele come in and be a real presence and a guy who can break tackles at times in an offense where it doesn't feel like anybody can do that. So I am really, really hopeful that these two young playmakers get out there and get a lot more run this upcoming Thursday, even if it's at the expense of veterans like obviously little Jordan Humphrey, but even Marvin Mims. Guys, what do you think?
Yeah, Marvin Mims was held to a lot. I mean, our leading receiver last week on Sunday was Vele. And I would be very surprised to see him ever be a healthy scratch again. I do not think he lost his spot on this starting roster, whether it be Josh Reynolds, Lil Jordan Humphrey, or even Franklin, Troy Franklin. I know that they have the connection, Bo Nix and Troy Franklin from Oregon, but I do believe that Vele has shown his importance on this team. So I feel like he's going to continue to be a big threat and a big target for this team going forward.
We know how I feel about Vele. I think David and I feel the same way. We've been kind of talking about it all year. Not only did he lead the team in yardage, but he might have led the team in targets this last year too, which shows the connection with Bo. Bo is looking for Vele, and you never hope for injuries or whatsoever, but with Reynolds being out over the next 3 games, Vele is going to be given the opportunity to show that he is the number 2 wide receiver on this team. And I think he has the capability of doing it. I mean, I believe that he's a little miniature Tim Patrick. He's not as big as Tim Patrick is. He's about as old as he is, but he has the ability to show something, and I really hope that we give him that chance. Mims, man, I want Mims to be good so bad, mostly because we talked about him last year, and even when we were talking to Jeff Legwood, we were asking him so many questions about him last year, and it just seems that he's non-existent. So here we go, Franklin.
Yeah, so here's what I'll say. So 6 targets for Vele, Sutton, and Javonte Williams. All 3 of them got 6 targets. 4 of them for Vele, 4 receptions for Sutton, and then 3 for Javonte in that last game. So yeah, they were all targeted all three of those, like you're thinking like your number one, number two receiver when you're talking about a guy who just came up from the practice squad, right? So it's a big thing. And then Marvin Mims had 3 targets for 0 receptions in that game, which is unfortunate. So what do we do on that offensive wide receiver side?
Yeah.
Somebody needs to take it over the top.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And if that means playing the young guys a little bit more so that you just give them more opportunities to see what other guys haven't shown you so far, then I think that's just going to have to be the way it is, right? All right, guys, any other thoughts on this Broncos offense? Should we talk about these pass rushers of the New Orleans Saints against this Denver Broncos offensive line? Man, I'm not entirely sure I can remember an edge prospect like Chase Young in history. Maybe not since like Aaron Maben, which is a long time ago name to pull out. But
that's Seattle.
Man, yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, and I don't know. He has, for a guy who was so hyped coming out of college and seemed like this can't miss number 1 overall prospect, etc. Man, he has really kind of seen his career go in a direction that I don't think he anticipated, certainly. But on the other side, you've got Carl Granderson, who is a really, really good edge player for this Saints team. Always seems to have an impact on the play and usually lines up against the right side of that offensive line. So, guys, what are you feeling like? Do you think that we got adequate enough play from Matt Pert out there on Sunday against the Chargers to feel decent if he has to step in, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, I feel like me and Spotty are going to disagree on this one because I think Matt Pert held his own. I don't think it was a Matt Pert problem on that offensive line. I think he held his own against the edge rushers. Obviously, Bosa was out, but he held his own. Obviously, I think that on the other side with Garrett Bowles, he had a tough time this game. There was a couple completely missed blocks and obviously on the bigger plays that you saw, a couple of holds that you saw from Garrett Bowles, but ultimately, I'm not upset at the way Matt Pert played. And then here's the thing I'll say about Garnerson and Young. Young is he's a pass rusher, right? He's a guy that's going to pass rush, and he's a one-trick pony. He's not going to be able to do much else. Garnerson is someone who plays the position, and he positions himself into a place, and he's a coach's like dream edge rusher, right? He's a guy who positions himself where if it's a pass play, he's going to get in the backfield. If it's a run play, he's going to position himself to be able to make the play or get the linebacker to make the play. I appreciate who he is as an athlete, and he's going to be an issue for us as we go forward if we need to rush to his side.
Here's what I want to kind of bring up about it, and Chase Young is an athletic freak. So all those plays where Bo was able to run around and maybe add a couple of seconds, and he's getting this last game, he's not going to have as much time. Chase has shown he has the ability to chase down wide receivers from backside. So that's something to know. And then on top of both of those guys, we still haven't talked about the wily vet, and that's Cam Jordan. Cam Jordan has still shown that he can be an above average pass rusher when he gets into the game. And I think having 3 guys that are on the line is going to create issues for the Denver Broncos. With 2 backup offensive linemen right now, we just don't have enough strength to take I'm going to call it a race car package. That's what the Broncos used to call their 3 pass rusher sets back in the day. If they throw out their race car package, Bo's going to need to show that he has the ability to get the ball out quickly and efficiently. And I get it. That sounds like someone saying that their Broncos need a dink and dunk. But of course, all at the same time, moving out of the pocket and, creating that space for yourself is what he's going to have to be able to do. I think there's Dennis Allen, who's the head coach of the Saints. We've seen him before. He was the defensive coordinator and head coach for the Oakland Raiders. He's going to want to draw things up. He's going to want to draw things up for a rookie quarterback, and I think they have enough weapons to make it very difficult for Bo. I think we'll see some different things, from Chase. I get it. It's only a couple of days. You can't do too much different, but even just a different stunt or, moving Chase to the same side is something that can easily be done.
Yeah, but so this brings it back to what we were talking about at the beginning too, the difference between running up the middle versus running out the edge. Chase Young is just an athletic freak, and he's going to be able to chase down those guys on the edge, either run to the outside on the opposite of him or run it up the middle, because their linebackers, Demario Davis and Willie Gay. I think that if you get into the second level, Javonte Williams is going to be able to break those tackles or be able to pull one of those linemen to be able to block second level. And we're going to be able to get some chunk yards up the middle.
Boom. Jared, you know how much I love you, chunk. All right, guys, we are coming toward halftime here on the pregame podcast. It's time to plug our pluggables, and boy, are they pluggable. Guys, you are here watching us on YouTube, if you are watching us, and that is really where you will find a huge amount of our content, right? You will find daily shorts. You will find the post-game podcast every Monday after the game. You will find the pregame podcast, not on YouTube, but on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, everywhere you can get your audio podcasts. Back to YouTube, though, you will find our Bourbon Broncos and No BS show. You're going to find so much content from us every single week there. Like, subscribe to us there. It's going to help us out so much. Catch the pregame podcast here, anywhere you can find your podcasts, and listen to everything else the Orange Weekly Podcast Network brings to you. I still don't know if it's Podcast Network.
Broadcast. It's broadcast.
Broadcast. We're back to broadcast. So, guys, we are the Orange Weekly Broadcast Network. We are bringing you quality Broncos content from a fan's perspective every single week, and we are going to continue to do so. Now, guys, time to switch. And that means it's time to talk about this Broncos defense against the New Orleans Saints offense. And Spotty, I'll send this one over to you first. Do you see any areas where the Broncos are going to be able to exploit a pretty banged up Saints offense here?
And almost everywhere. The biggest catch, and I'm gonna steal all the thunder because everybody's gonna be looking for it, is Alvin Kamara. Okay, so Alvin is someone who can catch the ball, he can run the ball. What the Broncos are going to need to do is tackle, because it seems like the man breaks tackles like it's his job. But so I with Olave being out in this game, their tight end is not someone that's very strong. We're going to be, even with our banged up secondary and banged up, obviously, without Patrick Surtain out there, I think we have the advantage in that situation. We have the advantage when it comes to these pass catchers. We swallowed up the Chargers pass catchers in the second half once we had our bearings, and the Saints aren't going to be able to have the same time and the ability to plan for the Broncos defense like the Chargers did. So big advantage when it comes to the secondary.
Yeah, so the secondary is obviously a big advantage because of the Chris Olave being out, and the fact that Spencer Rattler is starting. I think that's a big piece of this. You're talking about Derek Carr not being out for 4 to 6 weeks. Spencer Rattler, the rookie, so it's going to be rookie versus rookie this Thursday night game. And the inside linebacker, bro, and me talked about Justin Strnad has just been having a great season. I think he's actually been doing very well in the run game. He's been doing well in the pass game specifically. And the tight end threat is not there, which is normally our big, Achilles heel on these games specifically. So it's actually kind of nice on a short week that we're going against a rookie who's only got, I think Derek Carr got injured at the beginning of last week. So we only got like 3 quarters. Oh, it was 2 weeks ago. So we got about a couple weeks worth of Spencer Rattler film. It's not a lot to go through. So it's kind of nice that we don't have a lot to go through to figure out what his key is. But I think that we're going to be able to get the pressure on Spencer Rattler to be able to make him inefficient in the pass game, which means we can load the box / Justin Strnad's going to be able to get in the backfield or stop him at the line for 1 to 2 yard gains. Alvin Kamara. The thing with Alvin Kamara is he's an athletic freak. He really is just an amazing athlete. He's going to make one person miss. So our swarm technique, as the Broncos have throughout the first 6 games of this season, is going to come into play on Thursday night.
And at least this is one area where you do get the benefit of Sean Payton going up against his old team, right? He knows Alvin Kamara really, really well. He knows what he likes. He knows what he doesn't like, and he knows how he does and doesn't like to be defended. So hopefully that will be one area where the Broncos can get a little bit of advantage from prior knowledge there. Yeah, so boy, I think like you guys have been talking about, especially if the Broncos are swarming, flowing to the ball in that run game, they're going to be able to do some things against this Saints offensive line and against Alvin Kamara in that run game, and that's going to open up things hopefully for them in the passing game. This Saints offense averaged like 40 points a game over the first 2 games of the season, and then once they lost their starting center, Cesar Ruiz, it all kind of crumbled on them, even when they had Derek Carr in there, and then they lose Derek Carr too. So I am expecting this Broncos team, if they can get the Saints into 3rd and long situations, they're going to get more pressure than I think you saw them get against Los Angeles, and more consistent pressure. So I think like you said, Spencer Rattler, we'll talk about him in a little bit now, guys. As a gunslinger, you want to hit a guy like that, right? You want to hit him off and try and get him off his spots and get him off of his willingness to let a play develop deep, right?
Yeah, we need to do what the Chargers did to us last week, which is make him make a mistake early. And then he's going to get off his game real quick, and it's going to make him second guess throws as a gunslinger, right? That's exactly what happened to Bo Nix last week. He threw something over the middle, threw an interception, and he was afraid to throw over the middle for the rest of the game. He had to go to the outside and the short dink and dunk passes. So I think that's the game plan against Spencer Rattler, is get him off his game early so that he can't make those big deep throws. And I we've talked about the love I have for Riley Moss as a cornerback. He's our number 1 cornerback right now, right? Pat Surtain's out for this game. He's probably going to be back next week. But Riley Moss is going to be able to get something, at least a big pass breakup to where he has to go to the sideline. Spencer Rattler has to go to the sideline, and coach tells him, don't do that again. And now he's afraid to throw deep. And I think that's the key to this game, just throw him off of being a gunslinger type mentality.
So Broncos country should be very familiar with the offense that the Saints run. Clint Kubiak is the offensive coordinator for the New Orleans Saints. Okay, so with Clint Kubiak being the offensive coordinator, what does that mean? They run a Shanahan-based offense. Okay.
Yep.
And what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to get Spencer Rattler out of the pocket. We're going to see bootlegs. We're going to see play actions off bootlegs. It's going to mean that the edge rushers are going to have to know when to stay home. Because Spencer Rattler can also run. He's not going to blow you away with his speed, or he's not going to blow you away with his athleticism. But we've seen from some of these kind of offenses, 5 and 6 yards on a 2nd and 10 or a 2nd and 8 that's pretty huge. So as long as we can continue to be in a space, and we don't even have to even sack him all the time, as we're in a space and we force a throw, he's going to make a bad decision. He was on Netflix as Quarterback One a couple of years ago, and he's a very cocky guy. If you start beating on him and he starts making a couple of mistakes, he's going to get on himself real bad, real early. So it's definitely going to be a good idea. I think the Broncos have the ability to win the matchups on the offensive line with 4 and 5 guys. I'm not even sure if we even necessarily need to send the extra guys. So Zach Allen getting right through the middle and playing like he's playing, it's probably going to be a big key to the Broncos game.
Yeah, Clint Kubiak, former Broncos quarterback coach, and we're talking about going back and forth. Yeah, and a Rami apparently. Is that right?
Absolutely.
He played safety for the Rams, baby.
Oh man. Yeah, so it's a big piece there when we were talking about, like, obviously we're talking about Sean Payton going back to his old team, Clint Kubiak coming back to his hometown team, and as an offensive coordinator, he wants to put up good numbers to just as a reference. So obviously we're going to New Orleans, which is tough too, and I think that's a big piece. I think our defense is going to be able to hold on. Let's talk about. I know we've already talked about the offense, but real quick. The offense got to stay on the field for the defense to stay healthy. It's really what it comes down to. And if we can't keep the offense on the field and run the clock, the defense is not going to be able to catch their breath.
Yeah, absolutely right. All right, guys, we are just about to get through our final thoughts here on the Saints game versus the Denver Broncos, Thursday Night Football, Week 7 coming up. And of course, our final thoughts means our score predictions. And so, guys, before we get into that, I want to ask you just a little bit more generally. There's been a theme that I've seen for the last two defenses attacking, or the last two offenses attacking this Denver Broncos defense. And against the Los Angeles Raiders and against the Chargers, I thought both teams did a better job of attacking the edges against this Broncos defense and forcing, instead of getting them flowing downhill toward the quarterback, getting them flowing out toward the sidelines and seeing if somebody overplays a play, seeing if somebody overreacts, seeing if somebody will miss a tackle and allow the offensive player with the ball in his hand to get upfield. Are you guys seeing the same thing, and does that concern you for the rest of the year, if so?
No.
Okay.
No, and here's what I'll say. I think Jonathan Cooper and Nick Bonito are good players, and I think yes, they do take, like, there's been a couple of advantages they've taken on the run on the outside, but they've also schemed against it, right? Like you're talking about wide receiver cracks down on the edge rusher and making the safety come down, and we've been playing PJ Locke pretty far back so far this season. I don't think against Spencer Rattler we're going to have to play him that far back. Brandon Jones, I think we're going to be able to pull him up a little bit as well. I don't see it against this team specifically. The one thing I noticed in the Chargers game is, yes, it was the outside run that was killing us, the inside pass that was killing us. And I think a lot of that came down to we were trying to keep the same man position that we did with when we have PS2 in there. We could play man all day, PS2 and Riley Moss being able to play man on the outside. I think that we're good there. I think that we're going to change up our scheme a little bit going into this game. We're going to play a little bit more zone than we've seen in the past. So I don't see that being as big of an issue as we saw against the Chargers.
I'm also going to say no. The Harbaugh and is escaping Greg Roman. Is that the offensive coordinator for the Chargers? That man wants to run the freaking football. I mean, the Chargers, or not the Chargers, the Ravens were a top 2, and if not number 1 rushing team over the last couple of years, and he was the offensive coordinator there. So he's very good at scheming where they have the biggest advantage. Not every team is going to have that. I mean, the Chargers built their offensive line, even though they weren't completely healthy. The Chargers built their offensive line to pound the rock, and they brought in J.K. Dobbins, and they brought in Gus Edwards, and they brought in this rookie specifically to do that. After Alvin Kamara on the Saints, there's not that kind of depth and that capability. And I also don't believe that the offensive line for the Saints are that strong either. So they're and the wide receivers that they have left are definitely not going to throw in a crackback blocks.
Fair enough. All right, guys. Well, I don't think there's anything left to do but give our score predictions and wrap this bad boy up. So, Jared, I will start with you. How do you think this Thursday night matchup goes for the Broncos here?
Yeah, so I think this game's an interesting game, obviously, with a short week. I do believe, obviously there's a lot of like cross-pollination here with Clint Kubiak and Sean Payton coming back to New Orleans. I don't like that it's on the road. That is rough for me. However, I have, maybe the orange and blue goggles are throwing me on. It was a rough game against the Chargers, but I do believe that we can take advantage of their offense. And our offense is better than their offense, and the defenses are about the same. So I think that I think that this is a Broncos win, and I think the Broncos win this game. It's going to be low scoring. I believe it's going to be a 19-10 game for the Broncos.
Very good. Spotty?
I'm not a huge fan of this road game, but also at the same time, I think the things that we were starting to pick up steam with against the Chargers are going to be effective against the Saints. I'm actually going to give a little higher of a score. I think everybody's expecting a low scoring affair, but I think defenses are affected a little more on these short weeks. I'm going to go 27-14 Broncos.
Very good.
Wow.
I love it. I'm going to come somewhere in the middle of you two guys. I think that we are going to see the Broncos score 20 to 21 points or so. I do think it's going to be a relatively low scoring game, just because that's the way these Thursday night games have been trending and the way that these teams are playing defense versus the way they're playing offense right now. So I will go ahead and make my final score prediction 21-16 Broncos. I think they hold New Orleans to quite a few field goals, score 3 touchdowns, and we get out of there with a win heading towards Carolina at home. Guys, I think
David, I know this is gonna make us go over, and I know I'm terrible at this, and you keep it tight, and I'm ruining this. You keep it tight, and I'm ruining this. But who's our touchdown scorers?
Good question, Jared.
I've talked about this a while back. I think Javonte Williams gets a touchdown, his first touchdown of the season. He hasn't gotten it yet, and I think that with the fumbles, everyone's kind of looking out for him as a bust, which I don't believe in. I think he gets his first touchdown this season.
I will also go with Javonte. I think Court gets one. And let's give Marvin Mims his first touchdown of the season in this game.
Ooh, interesting.
I don't think Court gets a touchdown. Marshawn Lattimore is going to be on him. So I actually believe we're going to give Vele his first career touchdown.
Okay.
That'd be huge.
I love it. All right, guys. I think we are just about ready to wrap up for the evening here. We'll go around the horn with final thoughts, and then we'll close it out strong. I will start with final thoughts to give you guys a chance to think about it while I ramble. This is at 3-3, guys. We're probably about as good as we could have expected to start the season realistically with what we were going in with. I think that winning this game versus losing this game makes you feel a lot different about this team, even though you probably shouldn't. I know I predicted before the season started that we'll end with 8 to 9 wins. I haven't seen anything to throw me off of that prediction yet. And I think that we are going to see this game follow the pattern of a lot of other games for the rest of the season, which is that the Broncos will be in it for the entire game, but probably so will the other team. And that's just hopefully we see some growth toward that by the end of the season, but that's, I think, where we are right now.
I'll go on there then. It's hard to, when you get to the 6th or the 7th game in the year, to look at and say this game could make or break this season, or give us a turn. If we have the capability of beating the Saints, and then we take a break, and then we can beat the pants off the Panthers, right? Then the Broncos are looking at a 5-3 record, going into a hard spot in their schedule. Okay, so winning this game could be huge. It could spark something in the Broncos. It could spark another 3 games. If we're able to play like we've been playing. But of course, we need to see David's favorite word: growth. We really need to see growth. We're hurt right now. We need to see young players that we brought in to take a look at, take a step in this game. We need the Veles, the Franklins, the Bo Nixes, the Jonah Ellises to have at least 1 or 2 big plays to set us off in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm torn. It's hard for me because obviously I have the orange and blue goggles on, and I do believe that we need big offensive players to step up, just like Spotty said. So the Broncos' money line is the Broncos are favored for this game in New Orleans. Not by a lot. I think it's pretty much even, which means at a home game or away game for the Broncos, they're kind of favored in that aspect. The over-under is 36.5 points. For some reason they think this is going to be a decently, I guess 36.5 is medium scoring, right? 19. I said 19-10. That's only 29 points. So they think that there's going to be some more offensive plays in this. I believe that our defense is going to get some big stops, and I think we're going to get a turnover that's going to turn the tide of this game, just like we did in the Raiders game. I think the defense is going to be able to capitalize on a rookie quarterback who's struggling in his first few starts. And the Saints offense without his number 1 wide receiver, and Alvin Kamara is we're going to be able to control him because it's kind of a one-trick pony on the offensive side. They're not going to be able to pass the ball as well as they want to. So I do believe the defense is going to be able to get, if not a turnover and a score, definitely some turnovers in the on their side of the field to be able to set us up for some good plays.
All right, guys. I think that is just about it for the evening, guys. How about you? I think we've done everything we can do to this pregame podcast and then some. Yeah, I think you guys will catch us once again. Find us, guys, on the post-game podcast Friday evening. You will hear from us again next Tuesday on the Bourbon Broncos and No BS show to break down not only what we saw in the Saints upcoming Saints game, but what to expect in the Panthers game coming up. And of course, follow us on YouTube, subscribe to us on YouTube, find us everywhere you can find your podcasts. And fellas, I don't think there's anything left for us to do but to end this, as we always do, on a very strong
Go Broncos.
Take care. Thanks so much, guys.